Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ball is Round. I'm Hady Raphael, and tonight on the show, CF Montreal beats Cincy at Stade Saputo. We'll take a closer look at Courtois ball, and of course, the Canadian women's national team loses in penalties in the She Believes Cup final. That and a lot more on episode 175 of The Ball is Round. And I'm joined tonight by my good friend, Elias Grigoriadis. Hey, Elias, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Hady. How about yourself?
I'm great. I'm great too. It was fun to go back to the stadium after so many games where we were just commenting from our couch and just watching the game from our couch. So I think it was a great feeling to be back at Stade Saputo, right?
Oh yeah. Even from the press box, the energy it's contagious. It's the best. It's just the best.
Yeah, and you were inside. I was
Yeah,
outside.
exactly. You were freezing
So
your ass off with the fans. So
yeah, but
chapeau, right?
you know what? I was experiencing the game as a fan too, so that was nice.
I tip my cap to you and everyone braving the cold because that was too cold for me. Let's just say.
It was okay. It was okay, and we see Michael shares the same thoughts as you with the small emoji, frozen emoji. Yeah, it was a bit cold. Yes, of course, it was raining also, and it's been raining almost all afternoon also here in Montreal. But you know what? I think the atmosphere, the feeling that we had was really really amazing, and I think we experienced the real crowd of Stade Saputo, the real support of Stade Saputo, and that's something that for me warms my heart. So at the end of the day, I wasn't really cold because my heart was so warm, you know. Good. So before we dive into this, what's going on, Barcelona? So you had a great week with
I was
the
I
win
was
in
I was
Paris.
so close to a perfect week. If only the Canadian women's team could have pulled off the final. I was so close. Men's team won 2 games, women's team won 5-1, Montreal won. It was all set up. It was
Yeah,
not to be, sadly. But you know what? 3-2 win in Paris against PSG.
you know
It
when
took away some of the sting, let's just say.
and you know me, whatever happens, a
Yeah, you
win
you were
for
you were so
anyone.
disappointed, I'm sure, that PSG lost.
Exactly. A defeat of PSG is like a victory in my life, So that was really nice. We played Marseille played in Europa League quarterfinals in Benfica in Lisbon, and we lost 2-1. Not the end of the world because it was the first leg. So we go back to Stade Velodrome next Thursday to try and go through to the semifinals, which could be really, really interesting knowing that Atalanta beat Liverpool in Liverpool 3-0.
Oh yeah, that
So,
was something. I have some
so
Liverpool fans that are friends they're going through it with this entire week. Potentially losing the league this week and the Europa League. It's definitely been a week for them.
yeah, and before again, I think it's interesting to see what's going on also in global soccer in the European world or whatever in the world soccer. Seeing a team like Leverkusen going
Yeah.
undefeated the whole season, clinching the Bundesliga for the first time in their history, which is kind of mind-blowing because I thought that Leverkusen won it a few times before, and no, it was
Mhm.
their first win. I think it's they're at 43 or 44 games unbeaten.
Yeah. No, they're
Uh,
doing incredible work.
how incredible is that? How unbelievable is that?
I know it's and they're also the famous team that missed out on a treble on the final week. They lost the Bundesliga on the last week. They lost
Yeah,
the Champions League final and their national cup. I think the DFB Pokal final in the
yeah.
same week. So if you think you've got it bad with your club, I can't imagine missing out on all 3 trophies in the span of a couple days. But good on them. They play such beautiful football. They're such a joy to watch. They've brought back some interest in the Bundesliga, and it's not thought of as a one team league anymore. So, Dortmund's kind of fallen behind a little bit, but
Yeah, but
it's nice to see a team actually follow through on a title challenge and not
exactly.
trip up at the end.
Exactly. So 43 games unbeaten.
Yeah.
They equalized the record that was held by Juventus in the 2011-2012 season for the most games, consecutive games unbeaten. So next game they play, which is going to be, I think, it's all competitions. It's going to be Europa League. I think it's it's the return leg against West Ham. If they're able to not lose, they will beat the team that has the most incredible record in history. It's as simple as that. With the new coach too, with Xabi Alonso being the new coach of Leverkusen.
I wonder if that counts in games that have penalties.
Yeah, no, I don't think a penalties counts.
But they won 2-0, so it doesn't. A draw is a draw for them.
Yeah, but like they can lose 2-0 too and go to penalties, right? So
yeah, but then they'll have lost.
Hady, what's going on? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, no. So Leverkusen just I think the fairy tale story of Leverkusen continues. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Hopefully, we'll see a final Leverkusen Marseille somewhere. So
wouldn't that be something?
And with Marseille beating Leverkusen for the first, that would be awesome. We'll see. Let's go through Benfica first, and then we'll see. Good. So let's take a look at what happened yesterday evening. Of course, at Stade Saputo, we had our first game of the year at home between CF Montreal and FC Cincinnati. Of course, we say hi to our friends of You Ain't Lying and all the other podcasts that we participated in. But You Ain't Lying with Stephen and Nathan and so on are big friends of the pod. So we say hi to them for sure. So 2-1, a big win for CF Montreal. And you look at Laurent Courtois starting 11, which was a bit surprising again, with Jonathan Sirois in goal. As in central defense, we had George Campbell on the right center as a right center back, Joel Waterman as the middle of the back three, and Joaquin Sosa as the left center back. The wing backs were Juan on the right and Raheem Edwards on the left. In the middle, we had Mathieu Chouanière and Samuel Piet. As not number 10s, but offensive midfielders, we had Bryce Duke and Ariel Lassiter. And up front, as a lone striker, Matthias Kokoro. When you looked at the starting 11, did you have any doubts on what Laurent Courtois was expecting that night?
I think, like you, I was a little surprised. We talked about it before the game when the 11 came out that, they used the same back three as that game in Seattle. And given that they were going to have more of the ball, you would think maybe Gabriel Corbo is involved in some way, given that he's so good on the ball. But, I've come to not read too much into starting 11s, especially when you have, these good relationships that are forming all over the field. Joaquin Sosa is finally fully fit. I think that's another reason that he's in the starting 11.
Yeah,
as opposed to not really seeing him that much earlier in the season. And up top, it was very interesting to see Ariel Lassiter playing that secondary striker type role. Of course, Jean-Anthony Vilsaint was also ruled out late due to, I'm guessing, knee discomfort, because it was a late addition to the injury report. So that's another concern. But besides that, it was more the back three that would maybe raise my eyebrow a little bit. But we'll talk about later. It was very good choices.
But then it does make sense, if you want to install, a new back three or whatever, you have to give them, even after a heavy defeat, you have to give them, a second start, saying, you know what, this happened. Let's move on with the second game in a row and see how you evolve, how you become better. So yeah, what I thought was very interesting is the is the change up front and with the wing backs also. Okay, of course, the return of the midfield of Piet and Chouanière wasn't as surprising for me because that's the midfield that worked the best since the beginning of the season. And that's where, with that midfield, that's when we were able to collect 7 points away from home. So, going again with Chouanière and Piet was the right decision, in my opinion. But, putting Raheem Edwards and putting Lassiter, who had 2 awful games in the last two games, putting Lassiter up front was a bit surprising. Why not on the bench? I don't know. I was asking that question and was wondering if that was the good solution. Of course, when you look at the final score and the way they played, it was. But at the beginning of the game, I was wondering if that was gonna be a good thing. And having Joseph Martinez on the bench was a bit surprising, knowing how much he was involved offensively. But again, in my opinion, Matias Kokaro is better up front as a number 9 and not behind the number 9. So at one point, I feel that if you want to keep that same formation, you have to go with either or Martinez or Kokaro. So, I didn't know what to expect. It was going to be, one or the other. Seeing Kokaro made me happy because I think I really like that player. I'm really in love with
not to
he
love,
brings. Yeah, exactly. What he brings on the field. Even if also Martinez, I really love what he's doing too. But Kokaro is a bit of the dark horse in a certain way, and I love the dark horse usually. So yeah, we do have a question from Wellington that's asking where is Eve. Unfortunately, Eve is a bit sick, so unfortunately she couldn't make it tonight, but she'll be back, of course, next week, hopefully, if she feels better, and if she doesn't, that hopefully her health it feels better pretty soon. But that's the reason why she's not with us tonight. Moving on, so let's talk about the sectors of that starting 11. I think that's always very interesting. First, let's talk about the goalkeepers. Jonathan Sirois had a very quiet game, but I think very controlled game in my opinion. What do you think, Elias?
Yeah, it's one of those games where he didn't have much to do, right? So those little, maybe sometimes as a keeper, if you're not too busy, the more complicated parts maybe sneak up on you. But he kept a level head the entire game. He managed it very well. Maybe almost a little bit of exercising demons whenever he would come out for a cross, given what happened the last time he came out for a cross against Cincinnati. But all in all, didn't really do anything wrong. And I think that even his distribution, his first touch passes were pretty good. He broke some lines. So again, it's just another step in the right direction for him, and it's kind of cementing that he's not a one season wonder, which is everything you want from a game like that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? You talked about him, handling the crosses, and I think he was very good at this. Relieving his defense with his timely, catches inside the box, going out when he needed to, staying in when he needed to. His decision making on crosses was really perfect, which has been, I think, like you said, a bit of his demons, not only against Cincinnati, but throughout the season last year. It was a bit of his lack of his weakness,
His Achilles heel, yeah.
and his Achilles heel, exactly. And you know what? I think he showed that he's improving on it, which I really liked. We didn't see a lot of short distribution and passes from him to the central defense. And we didn't see him play as a central defender. Sometimes, moving a bit forward outside of the box. So that we didn't see yet at home in the first game. We didn't see it, and frankly, CF Montreal didn't really need him to be in that position either, because they were really much in control of the game for most of the whole game. So, which was very, very interesting too. Talking about that and talking about his defense, how did you find the performance of the back three? Because after unfortunately a very hard and tough performance in Seattle, conceding 5, did pretty well.
Yeah, and I think, we were talking about why not maybe change up the back line, stuff like that. I think this is also a very important vote of confidence from Laurent Courtois saying the game never happened. Go first game at home. I'm trusting you with this. And they paid it back, right? Except for, you switch off once and they make you pay for it. But for like 89 minutes and 15 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever, they were on it the entire game. It felt like at no point after Cincinnati scored that first goal, or even before that, were there any real present and consistent danger. I think anytime Cincinnati got into a dangerous spot, they cleared their lines well. They played out of the back exceptionally this game. Better than I've seen them, even under Wilfried Nancy at times play out from the back. And Cincinnati was high up the field, especially in the second half pressing, and they were completely unfazed. So I think that it was really impressive. I think that the back three are developing a really good relationship. You saw them even warming up. They warm up together. They spend a lot of time together, and I think that that familiarity is only going to make them so much stronger, so much more potent.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. And you develop some sort of chemistry by repeating games together, and yeah, for sure, they're going to be stronger as the season goes on. If that's
Mhm.
the main back
Yeah.
three that Laurent Courtois wants to establish his starting 11 on, I think yes, they need to have more time together, and they're going to grow together as a unit in a way. So completely agree with that. So I really liked also, weirdly enough, the two additions to the back three. So the two newbies of the back three with Joaquin Sosa and George Campbell, I really liked. I didn't really like the game of Joel Waterman. I feel that at times he was a bit late. Maybe lack of concentrations at time too. I don't know if you agree with me, but I feel that he had a lot of trouble, handling his himself, handling himself during the game yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was a very given that, Cincinnati's front three is so fluid, you have Acosta, you have Bopenza, and you have Kubo kind of just shifting in and out and around one another. It's very tough if you're the middle center back to kind of find out what your role is. For Campbell and Sosa, it's a little bit more straightforward, but for Joel Waterman, there's a lot more ambiguity in your
Of
responsibilities.
course,
And
of
I
course.
think that, that was put on display in the first goal, in the only goal, right? Where you switch off for a second and Acosta finds that little bit of space. So of the three, did he maybe have the weaker game? Yes, but I think it's just because Campbell and Sosa were exceptional. I don't think by any means he had a bad game. I just think that, these are the types of games where he has to do the most learning. Because he said it himself, right? He's not there yet. He's on his way to becoming this general, this, Rudy Camacho type figure. He's well on his way. But games like this are you have to take the most learning experiences from. So, sit down, you watch the tape, you find out what I did well, what I did poorly, and you look you grow from it. And I think that, I saw a lot more positives and negatives from him. But yeah, there were certain moments where you're like, okay, he still has some learning to do, especially for someone who's been playing in the middle of back three for what now, like 15, 20 games total,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
include.
He needs
Right?
that a bit of experience. I completely
So
agree with
he's
you. But
on his way, but yeah, I agree with you that he's probably the weaker of the three,
yeah,
but that's by
yeah.
no means that I think he had a poor game.
No, no, no.
It's
He didn't
just,
have a poor game. He's the weaker
this
of
is
the three,
another
as you said.
that one, that goal is definitely a learning experience for how he can kind of, just anticipate a bit better.
Yeah, and it's a bit weird because he had such an amazing start of the season in the first three games, but the whole team was very good. But in the maybe in the last three, DC, in Seattle, and yesterday were not very good. So hopefully he will bounce back and be that leader that we know he can be in the middle of the back three. We do have quite a few comments, and we'll talk about them, during the show for sure. We do have just one comment that I want to highlight right now. It's from Roger Schmidt. Our first game at the stadium was very cool, but a great time and good game. Glad you liked it, Roger. I think it was a lot of fun. So Roger is my former boss at my old my old job at Volkswagen a few years ago. So hi to Roger, and
Hi,
very
Roger.
very happy to see you to see at the stadium and to see you involved with CF Montreal. So amazing to see you there. Good. So moving on, the wing backs, a big change from Laurent Courtois. On the right, we had Juan, that was again so lethal and so good in my opinion. And on the left, Raheem Edwards, that was also at times very good, and at times very hot-headed. Let's call it that way. So, how
Yeah.
did you find the performance of the two wing backs?
Oh, I mean, it's nice to see Juan kind of get back to his not his former self because he really was just off for like 2 games.
Yeah,
But it's very nice to see that he's kind of gotten his step back because he was everywhere. And he played the full 90. Um, which has been a concern. Other games just because of the amount he runs. He doesn't stop running, and he didn't stop running yesterday. And look, he hit the crossbar. He could have scored. He was very good on that right side. He linked up with Bryce Duke exceptionally well, and overall, it's the consistency that I like from him because again, he had a little bit of a dip in form. To be fair, everyone had a dip in form against Seattle, so you can kind of just
of course,
right. But
of course.
overall, I think he's been one of the most consistent players on the team this year. And Raheem Edwards, it's kind of like it's you never know what you're gonna get with any given sequence of play. Raheem Edwards is either gonna pull out something crazy or make you cover your hands in horror. And I think that what if that's kind of what they're gonna get into. I think that he was very good for most of the game, and unfortunately he got into yellow card trouble. He's very fortunate to have not been sent off with that second challenge. We talked about it. Um, but overall, right, he contributed an assist and he was very good on that flank. Him and Lassiter were like interchanging all the time, and I think that was very like he was still learning to be part of the team. But I really enjoyed what he had to offer because he does bring that little extra bit of oomph.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And his dribbling style is really
It's
unique.
unique, yeah.
It's
He's
really
almost like
unique.
stomping. He's almost like
Ex-
stomping whenever he does a step over, and just like
exactly. And sometimes you feel that it's like I don't know, a comedy show. Sometimes
yeah.
he's just trying and he's like moving, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then it works, and you're like, what? It was very,
But I mean, Wellington brought up a good point.
yeah,
Where
yeah.
concern is
Let's
if
put
he
it
can't
here.
play if he can't play 90 minutes, fitness wise, I have no problems with him playing 90 minutes. I have no concerns. The thing is, can he stay out of the
Trouble.
referee's book
Yeah,
long enough to play the 90 minutes? That's my bigger concern. I have no doubt that he can play 90 minutes. Is will he get the chance to? Because again, you were he was a hair away from being sent off again, and after that he did kind of he maybe shaped up a little bit. Maybe Laurent Courtois at halftime told him, uh, "Shape up, or I'm taking you out." And I get that, but at the end of the day, still so many positives. I just think he needs to, have like a stress ball or something during the game that he can kind of squeeze and maybe feel a little bit better.
exactly. And Fan de Sport agrees with you. Edwards was good, but too close of getting a lot of yellow, so second
Oh
yellow
yeah, he's
card,
definitely
so
going to get a
so
yellow
so a
card
red card.
suspension on
And
accumulation.
let's talk about the fact that he stayed on still at halftime. Honestly, when I saw and we talked about it,
We
in
did,
the in
yeah.
the in the in the halftime show when we saw each other, Elias, and we were like, Laurent Courtois has to substitute Raheem Edwards at halftime because, as you said, he was lucky not to get a second yellow card on a challenge just before
Hmm.
halftime. And we thought it was very, he was very close to getting called. And I think he caught the referee's eye quite a few
Yeah.
times. And I feel that we were playing with fire a bit. So what happened is, and I really like that, Laurent Courtois still decided to gamble by keeping him in the starting 11 in the second half, knowing that the previous game he did that with Nathan Saliba, and he got a second yellow card and a red card. So, what do you think of Laurent Courtois' decision, knowing that last time he took that this kind of gamble, it didn't work out for him. This time it did, because let's not forget, Raheem Edwards is the one that gives the assist on Joseph Martinez's goal.
Yeah, I think the common theme for last night's game is vote of confidence. Right? He gave the
I
back
like
three a
that.
vote of confidence. He gave Raheem Edwards a vote of confidence at halftime. That all paid off. We're going to talk about the attackers, right? Ari Lasser and Bryce Duke both getting, again, votes of confidence that paid off massively. I think that Joel Waterman on Inside CF Montreal said it last week that nowadays, being a manager is also like being a psychologist, right? You have to be aware of the mental state of your players at all times. And I think that, he's gone to great lengths to be very, very cognizant of where his players' headspace is at. And if he goes, okay, if I put you back in at halftime, if I don't take you out at halftime, I have to know that you're good for it. If I you've had a rough couple of games, but if I put you again and I put you, in your natural position, or if I put you back in after a difficult game, I'm giving you my vote of confidence, and that clearly has an effect on these players because they all had very strong games.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I wonder, we didn't ask the question at the at the press conference after of what kind of discussion did he have with Raheem Edwards, but I'm curious to know if he had that one-on-one with him just before he went back into on the stadium in the second half. So that's maybe a question that we should have asked, and of course we did ask them some very interesting question, and we'll talk about it, in the second segment mostly. Moving on, after those wingbacks that I think really had a very, very good game, we didn't talk about Juan, and I just want to say something. We did criticize his decision making in the final third quite a lot in the last 2-3 games. Of course, he's so quick, he's so resilient, he's pacey, he has a lot of stamina, his endurance. Yes, that we know, but his decision making at the end was unfortunately his weakness in quite a few games. But yesterday, I felt that his decision making was really, really interesting. Sometimes the execution wasn't really top notch, like when he decided to cross the ball and the cross wasn't really on point, but every time his decision, his way of thinking was adapted to what the play really needed. And again, I think that he deserved that goal, that crossbar that he hit. I think he deserved the goal because he played so well, and it's unbelievable how quick he is. It's just unbelievable. And we saw him covering at the back too a couple of times, and we saw a very pacey striker trying to get in front of him, and he wasn't able to. And it's really, really interesting to see him play and to see him grow in a way, because he did grow in the last few games, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And look, again, he talked about forming a partnership with George Campbell.
Yeah.
And look, they get along. And
Yeah,
sometimes when you
they
get
do.
along with the player and you click and you're on the same wavelength, stuff becomes so much easier. And you could tell, right? They find each other when they build out of the back. They cover each other. They cover each other defensively. And when you have someone like Luciano Costa on your side, you have to be, connected at all times. And they were very efficient. Right on the left hand side, he had nothing. He was completely ineffective.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I mean, chemistry is good and all, but sometimes you click with someone, right, instinctively, and they get each other. And I think that's going to go a long way in helping George Campbell also stay in, and he's looked really good. They look really good together, and I think that's going to go a long way in not only keeping him in the starting 11, but he's also looking very good to represent the United States at the Olympics. And I
Yeah.
think that that's good. That might help him a lot as well.
Yeah, that's not going to help Montreal though. But yeah,
Hey, players with national team minutes is always a good thing.
yeah. But we're going to be missing I don't know how many players during the Olympics, so it's just going to be pretty tough. So
I didn't even
So
think
let's
of that.
wait and see. And the Copa America too are right after. So that's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a tough season for our depth. And we're going to need all those players within that 30-man roster, I think, this year, because we're going to miss a lot of players during the summer. Moving on to the midfield, we do have a very interesting midfield with Mathieu Chouanière, with Samuel Piet, and up front, Ari Lassiter, Bryce Duke. Let's start with the obvious, Bryce Duke. And we do have quite a few comments already, most of them from Wellington, that's not a big fan of Bryce Duke. I think he made us aware of that since day one, the first time he watched our game. So we see Bryce saying Bryce Duke is not consistent during the whole game. With all his talent, his performance is still below standard for a player we expect so much from. And he says, again, I still have an issue with Duke performance, a lot of inconsistencies in this game. Cannot rely on him to win a game. To me, he's overrated. It may sound harsh, but that's the truth. I'm gonna say that's your truth, Wellington. But let's comment on this, on the performance of Bryce Duke. Elias, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I always value dissenting opinions. But I disagree. I think that this was arguably his best game, not just of the season, but with Montreal altogether in the year, in the pretty much it's been a year now that he's been with the group. And I think that he was far and away the most comfortable he's looked. And we talked about this a bit after the first game or two, where, if he gets more comfortable with what his responsibility is, the execution will come later. Right. And in those first two games, he already seemed more comfortable in the Hancotois system than he did in Hernan Losada's. And he's not, at the moment, he's not cut out for the physicality and the running and the demand of playing away. We have to be a lot more defensive. You have to be a lot more conservative. But at home, when you enjoy the possession and the space that playing at home allows you, you saw it. Even in the first 5 minutes, he was so much better. He was unrecognizable from, the other 6 games this season. He was comfortable in the ball. He was combining with everybody. He was all over the place. He was running. He was chasing people down. He was challenging for 50-50s. It was a completely different Bryce Duke. And I think that, look, having someone that you can rely on not only, but mainly when they're at home is obviously, it's not going to be, team of the year and stuff like that. But it definitely shows that he has carved himself a place in this group, and he could be relied on in certain situations. And look, he won't, even if he's not going to be at this level for every single game, if you include, away games, or even every single game at Stade Saputo, the fact that this is in his repertoire and it works within the Hancotois system, I think is definitely worth considering. And he did a number on his own stock within, not just fan base, but the coaching staff yesterday.
No, I agree, and Patrick agrees also with you, saying Bryce Duke looked incredible yesterday. He's not going to put up many numbers, but he puts people in the position to put up numbers, and that's exactly what we get from Bryce Duke. And again, I don't know if any of you really listened to the interview of Olivier Renard with Olivier Brett. No, not Olivier Brett, sorry. On BPM, I don't remember who it was. No, it's not BPM. 985, sorry. 98.5.
On the radio.
On the radio, 98.5. He said a very interesting thing that we also said quite a few times here on The Ball is Round. CF Montreal doesn't have money to get complete players that are able to play, to be as complete as possible. So what Olivier Renard tries to do is to get players that have some talent in one or two things. And the important thing is that when you look at the team, you have all kinds of profiles of players, and you can switch between those profiles in any positions. And that's what you get with Bryce Duke. When we say a regular starting 11, there isn't such a thing in CF Montreal. That it doesn't exist. You're going to have a group of 20, 25, 30 players that are going to make a team. And the starting 11 is always going to be composed of whoever profile fits the most with the game that you're going to play against whatever opponent. So that's very important to understand. And Bryce Duke falls into this confection of a squad where, as you said, Elias, at home, where we do have a bit more position, where we're able to play quick, he's very, very good. And he
Mhm,
makes us look
mhm.
good. And he creates so much space and he creates so many opportunities for the other people to be decisive that he's important within that squad. I don't think he is, a regular starter every game. No, but he is a player that can bring something different than all the other
Yeah.
midfielders that we
Mhm.
have that can play in the offensive midfield position. And we saw it yesterday. He was, I think, in the first half, it was his best half
Yeah.
with the CF Montreal colors, and that's exactly what I told you when I saw you at halftime. For me, his best half, even better than his game against the Mexicans in Satspura. I forgot which team it was. Pumas
Pumas.
against
Yeah. Leagues Cup.
against
Yeah.
against Pumas. So for me, he had a complete first half. And then, of course, it was a bit more difficult in the second half, but he still was pretty interesting in the second half too. So I really loved what I saw from him. Let's talk also about Ariel Lassiter playing in a
Yeah.
new, I'm going to say new position, not really because
New old
that's
position.
new old position. Usually he plays more on the left, like as a winger, but now he's playing more inside in the middle. I think he was very, very interesting. And
Yeah.
what's really interesting is his uh, the way he moves with Joseph Martinez. There's a partnership there that's very, very interesting, and he talked about it, our Lassiter, in the post game presser, saying that him, Bryce Duke, Joseph Martinez, they know each other from
Mhm.
Miami, and they recall their Miami days in a way, and that helps a lot in a way that when you're so early in the season, why don't you bank on past experiences and try to build something from there at first, and then incorporate whatever you can incorporate
Yeah.
within the season. And I think that was very interesting from Laurent Courtois, choosing that partnership up front of three players that have been playing that play together with another team. What do you think about that,
Yeah, that
Elias?
kind of went over my head at the start of the game, and
Yeah,
then
true.
towards the end I was like, you're right. I forgot who said it in the press box, but yeah, I mean they were all on the same team at some point. So I think that that goes a long way in understanding other people's movements and stuff like that. But you could tell, right? It happened 2 or 3 times where the ball would go into Martinez, he would dummy it, make the run in behind, and then Duke would find him. And and like clockwork, right? And stuff like that is where Bryce Duke shines. He finds his little pockets of space. He said it when he got here that that's what he does best is finding his little pockets of space and making important passes, right? He created I think created like 4 or 5 chances on his own, a bunch of very important passes, even in the buildup. Um, it goes without saying that he was at his best today, but more importantly, it's finding him when he's confident and building that confidence throughout the game. Because there were moments that he didn't get the ball for, maybe a little bit of stretch of time. And then all of a sudden, you could tell that his rhythm was off. But the second he started getting the ball consistently, he was getting touches consistently, and he was involved in every aspect of the buildup, his confidence grew again. So I think it's just also a matter of fact of keeping him involved as much as possible in the game, because that's when you'll get the best version of Bryce Duke. And so when it comes to Ariel Lassiter, um, we talked about, right? It's a vote of confidence. He said, you had 2 really, really difficult games at wingback. So I'm going to start you at winger. And yeah, he did play a lot in the half spaces, but at the same time, when the
Yeah.
ball was on the left side, him and Raheem Edwards basically had, you know, overlapping positions for a lot of the game. And I think that's where having a winger who's familiar with the position of wing back is so valuable
Yeah, I
because they were
agree.
really just trading off each other. And you even have like Joaquin Sosa was getting involved. We'll talk about it after, but Joaquin Sosa was getting involved too in some parts. But him and Raheem Edwards had a very good partnership, and Lassiter does bring that little burst of pace because Martinez and
Oh
Duke
yeah,
don't really
you
have that
you
pace, and
see
you
it on
saw
the
it
second goal.
on the
You
second
see,
goal, right?
exactly.
It's a relatively slow buildup, and then Lassiter just finds the space and bolts, and that was by design, right? He talked about after the game. That was his instruction, was to find those pockets of space in behind and rely on the technical quality to get him the ball, and he made no mistake finishing it. But this is where this is your blueprint as a team, right? Because they could have very well scored 4 or even 5 goals last night. So this is your blueprint. Now you have to build on it. This has to be your floor. You have to keep on putting these consistent performances in because you did this against hands down the best away team in MLS for the last year and a half. They have been the best, bar none. So you did this against, you know, the toughest opposition you could possibly have. Now you have to do it against everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, the thing is, I see that from Patrick, and I asked myself the question. He said I like Lassiter a lot more as a second striker than as a wing back. Maybe our new Kyoto, he has space and power. I'm still not convinced about the consistency that an Ariel Lassiter can bring in that position. So yeah, a good game, a very good game. Can he repeat the performances day in day out? I'm not really sold on this yet, but I think it's a nice addition to those forward positions, knowing that yes, we do have quite a bit of a problem right now, and then we do have a question from Patrick saying any
Yeah.
news on Opoku starting to get a bit thin up front. But you know what? If you add Lassiter, if you add Lassie that did play up front also I think in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, or in DC, I
Mhm.
forgot. You do have quite a bit of options, and that's what's really interesting with the squad and the
Yeah.
building of the squad of Olivier Renard, that you do have versatile players that can play in whatever positions, and that's going to help a lot during the season, in my opinion. Talking about Opoku, we did see him, at Satsupuro. He looked better. Like he didn't have anything on his foot or anything. So close to a return.
I
I don't
forget
think
who a
so, but
reporter said it, but he said he's halfway through his recovery. So,
okay. So we still have a couple of weeks then.
figure about a month, right, before we
Uh,
could see him. We'll see. We'll see when he shows up in
to
training, and
three
that'll give
weeks,
us a
yeah.
better indication of when he comes back to the lineup.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So let's wait and see with that. And talking about Bryce Duke, Wellington says, I agree. Duke performance yesterday was by far the best since he joins Montreal. The guy is not consistent. I cannot rely on him. Only time will tell as the season progresses. That's good. You're a bit more open, Wellington. Love it. Let's wait and see,
Baby,
as you
baby
said.
steps. We'll win him
Baby
over by the end
steps.
of the season. Watch this.
Exactly, baby steps, as you said. Exactly. We didn't really talk about Mathieu Chouanière and Samuel Piet. We talked about the two, forward position in that 4 man in the middle.
Mhm.
Anything about that squad or
I mean,
those two?
they're
Sorry.
so good together. They're so good together. They operate like one brain sometimes. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. This is why Samuel Piet needs to be in the national team picture. And we talked about it yesterday, actually, at the same time, because the work he did let Mathieu Chouanière do his own thing. Mathieu Chouanière was all over the place, and he knew that he had the safety and the consistency of Samuel Piet behind him. And Steven Eustachio and Ismail Kone need that security so they can go to work when they have the ball. And Samuel Piet was so good today at winning the ball back, at breaking up the counterattack, at everything you expect Samuel
Yeah,
Piet to do. This was a prototypical Samuel Piet performance in
yeah,
that he did everything right, you know. And Mathieu Chouanière was allowed to go to work and do his own thing. And I think that is why they work so well together, because they both complement each other so well, and they both give the other the freedom to do what they do best without stepping on each other's toes. So Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say about them. They've been so good this year. They've been arguably the best part of the team this year, and God, they're just getting started, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm gonna be very honest. I love, I like their performance. I'm not gonna say love because I think there are some improvements that can be uh, that we can see from that pair. I think that sometimes we tend to see Mathieu Chouanière not be as involved as I want him to be involved in the offensive end. I think we can use him a bit more in a way. Of course, it's hard when you see your center backs moving forward that much, but also your wingers and everything. So they're a bit of the safety net of that team in a way. But I think we're missing that Mathieu Chouanière flair up front sometimes. So I think that can be improved a bit more. But I want to talk about Victor Wanyama that came
Yeah.
in yesterday. He did come in at the 63rd minute, so had a decent cameo of about 30 plus minutes. Honestly, I was a bit disappointed what I saw from Victor Wanyama. He seemed a bit, I don't know if it's a lack of involvement or a bit of detachment. I didn't feel that he meshed very well with the rest of the team. Is it just me, or it's just, did you feel the same way
You,
also?
you you could tell there's still some growing pains there because there's so many new faces, but at the same time, he went in there with one job, which was handle the game,
Yeah,
and he did exactly that.
yeah, he did.
So, was he exceptional? No. Was he at his best? Not even close. But he was just good enough to do what was asked of him,
Yeah,
right? And I'm sure Laurent Courtois was like, "Look, you haven't been in the starting lineup, and this is definitely like not the most fit we've seen him." He did a lot of running, by the way, for half an hour, a lot more than Victor
yeah,
Wanyama usually does.
yeah.
But um, I think he was good, and I think he did exactly what was
It
required of
was
him.
decent. It was
Exactly.
decent.
Right. There was he's not 10 out of 10 wow masterclass, but it also wasn't a disaster. I think he was exactly as good as Laurent Courtois needed to see the game out, which is what they did.
I really wanted him to play a bit more, like keep possession a bit more, and keep the ball and really, his ball protection skills are really wow usually. So we didn't see a lot of that. Uh, but yeah, he did a job, as you said. He was able to do the job. So an okay performance from him. I was expecting a bit more, maybe because of how much we talked about him being
Mhm.
maybe the solution in midfield at times, but I wasn't very impressed from what I saw. Not that he had a bad 30 minutes, but
No,
not that impressive
he did
either.
his job,
He
it
did
was
his
very
job,
much
as you said.
yeah.
As you said. Moving on with the attacking role, of course, Matias Kokaro starting the first 25 minutes. I love this guy because of the energy that he has, but also it's a bit of contagious, the energy that he has. In
Yeah.
the first, I think, few seconds, you see him starting to yell at his teammates, come on, let's press. And then you see a Bryce Duke doing a press and winning the ball in the midfield. And of course, tackling the ball in the midfield and the ball going on a throw. And we saw that energy that he brings on the pitch, not only his to himself, but to the others. And that's something that I really love from Matias Kokaro. And we see it right away. Unfortunately, he was injured at the 25th minute and was substituted. We don't have yet the gravity of the situation of his injury, but it seems very, very bad. Hopefully, he's not going to miss the whole season. Let's wait and see. Is it going to
We'll
be a
test
month,
tomorrow.
2 months, 3 months? We're going to know more tomorrow. But it seems that it's going to be heartbreaking. And Laurent Courtois said it in a post game presser that he was devastated. So when he said devastated, but he said right after, we'll see what it's going to be later. It seems that he was carrying a bit of a knock since the beginning of the season, and we saw him, get
Mhm.
substituted quite a few times. What do you feel about Matias Kokaro and his future with the club, like this season?
Look, the sooner they get him back, the better, right? Not just for a depth reason, but for a morale reason, right? Like you
Yeah,
said it, right? His energy is contagious. Everyone works harder, everyone runs harder. Ça fait mouiller le maillot when he's around. And it's not a coincidence that, you almost felt shoulders drop a little bit when he got substituted off, and it took maybe 5-10 minutes for them to get back into the game and kind of get their rhythm back. So, they will miss him dearly, and not just for a depth reason, but for what happens psychologically. And look, you have Martinez is excellent, and you have Mahala Poku, who's so good, and you have Jean Vincent, who's so promising, but he brings something that nobody else on the team can bring, right? Even the leaders, he is one of those unofficial leaders that everybody kind of rallies around because he doesn't just ask you to do it. He will physically, put his body on the line, and he's done it all season. This isn't the first time he's come off injured. It definitely won't be the last, but that's the way he plays the game, and that's why he's such a fan favorite because, you know, exactly, Patrick says give him the time he needs to comes back at 100%, especially if you have Jonathan Vissaint, who's just, it's just a knock. They have him back. You have Sunusi Ibrahim, yeah, well, does the dirty work in the field. Exactly. So I think that everyone's more, Grinta is contagious and he's got it in spades. So hopefully it comes back sooner rather than later. Hopefully it's nothing too serious or too structurally dangerous. And,
let's hope.
come back soon.
Let's hope. Let's hope he comes back very, very soon.
Yeah.
But again, as you said, we do have that, which is really interesting. And when you talk about that, and you name Joseph Martinez, that's a bit funny because he's that good. And honestly, I wasn't too ecstatic of when he signed with CF Montreal. I thought that it was a bit too slow, but you know what? He proved me wrong yesterday in a way, and he was very interesting since the beginning of the season. I didn't think he still had it in him to be competitive, but we saw it yesterday. He was so good, getting a goal and an assist, uh, reading the game so well. Having that flair, not only with his runs, but also giving assists and,
Mm-hmm.
and building play, and not only scoring. And a lot of people were talking about Joseph Martinez being a poacher, that kind of player that stays in the box and scores goals. But he's a lot more than that. And until now, we saw a lot more of Joseph Martinez than what we thought we would see. And I find that very, very interesting. He seems like he's ready to be a leader for that team.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed yesterday. Don't you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, this is what separates the good players from the great players is that once they lose their speed, once they lose their power, once they lose their physical attributes, they learn to affect games in other ways. And he seemed to coast through the entire game and yet be so impactful because he was always in the right spot. Laurent Courtois talked about it, right? His movement off the ball is exceptional, and his ability to find space, and that's exactly what you need with a striker who, let's face it, doesn't have the same legs he had when he was in Atlanta.
Yeah,
And
sure.
but he's always in the right spot. He's always in a position to affect the game. And that's what separates him from, players who the second that their physicality and their athleticism kind of drops off, you see a noticeable dip in performance. For him, he just kind of reinvented himself and he found his not his new calling, but he found a new way to be just effective, right? And like Patrick said, 5 goal contributions already, and he's only had 2 starts. Well, I mean 1.5 really. So again, excellent performance, and I think that we were together when we found out that he's coming to Montreal. And we
Yeah,
both had our concerns,
yeah,
but look, I said if he was used in the right way, then of course I'd welcome him. And it looks like they are using him in the right way. They're not using him too much. They're kind of picking the right moments, and he's forming connections right away because this is a player that other players feel more confident around. He makes everyone better around him. So you have Matthias Kokoro who makes other players work harder, and you have Joseph Martinez, who has other players be more confident. So they both bring something different, but it's kind of like this energy that they have that is contagious, and this confidence that they can transmit, and that's exactly what you need with a team who's still learning to kind of what their identity, you know?
No, I completely agree, and I like what Patrick says. You see his quality; all his
Yeah,
passes seem perfectly weighted. He's a notch above technically. I agree. I agree. He showed some very, very good things. I still prefer to see Kokero up front when they're both healthy, and Martinez play in behind in a way.
yeah.
But I think both are really interesting options. And of course, Joseph Martinez uh, is that kind of player. Hopefully, we'll see him score, a lot of goals for CF Montreal. He seems very happy with the team. He seems to get along with everybody in a way, and I don't know why. I feel already a connection between between him and the crowd, him and the club, more more than what I saw in Miami when I
Hmm.
was, seeing him in Miami. So it's only my speculation and what I see when I look at that at his reactions and everything. But I don't know. I feel him. I feel he's good. He's happy to be here. So hopefully we'll see that talent really become a force for that team throughout the season.
It's because you went to
Um,
go see him at the airport. That's why. So he was ready.
Good. So great game, of course. 2-1, a big win for CF Montreal yesterday. With I'm gonna show you, or maybe we're gonna share the standings. So it won't be too long. Where can I share? Can I share? Can I share? I'll show you the standings, I think, which could be very interesting. Share screen, and I'll go with the share screen, and then you'll see. Sorry, and then you'll see the starting 11, the standings, of course, with Miami being first with 15 points, 1.67 point per game. You do have they did play 5 games at home in the 9 games they played, so you do have that. You have New York Red Bulls that are having a great
Yeah.
beginning of the season with 1.88 point per game in 8 games, 3 games at home. Philadelphia with 2 games at home, being up top with 13 points. Columbus still playing Champions League, winning in the quarterfinals, moving on to the semifinals, and still able to be fourth with 1.63, which is a great record still. At Cincinnati, that are just behind with 12 points. Of course, better in away from home than at home. Atlanta that only played 7 games, 1.57, playing in the 7 games, 4 games at home. Charlotte 138 in 8 games, again 4 games at home, and then Montreal with 10 points,
Hmm.
1 game at home, and Toronto with 10 points, 3 games at home. DC 10 points, 4 games at home. So you look at the trend and what I'm trying to say. CF Montreal managed to get 1.43 points a game by playing one of their 7 games at home,
Yeah.
which is kind of mind blowing. The only team I think is doing better is Philadelphia, who's getting 1.86 with 2 games at home. So looking at the standings, of course, it's very, very early in the season to say anything about the standings themselves, but this looks pretty promising for CF Montreal, no?
Yeah. Look, I mean, if you look at just their away form, I think it's something like 1.16. I
Yeah,
looked it up the other day. 1.16 points per game, and that's enough to get them like the fifth best. If you compound it over an entire season, it's enough to get them like the sixth or seventh best away record in MLS last year. So, you can look at the way they ended that road trip and be like, okay, this wasn't the most successful road trip, but at the same time, 7 out of 18. If all they have to do is continue at that pace, and they are a well above average away team on
Yeah.
top of how good we know they can be at home. Playoffs are looking less and less like a likelihood and more like a
Let's
very
wait and
real
see.
possibility.
Let's wait and see. But even if I do agree with you that it looks promising for the playoffs, I think I still think that it's very very early to guarantee in a way a place in the
Same.
playoffs. We did talk about it together at the beginning of the season, and we both said that we would be in the playoff picture.
Yes, we,
So
we both agreed they would win the supporter shield. I remember that. I
no,
was
no,
there.
no, no. I never said that. I never said that. So yeah, very, very interesting standing wise. Even as I said, it's still very early to say, but I like to take a look at the standings from time to time. So I like that. So let's talk about the second segment, Courtois ball. What is Courtois ball for you? I we're really starting to see what Laurent Courtois wants to do with that team. I think we saw it a lot more yesterday than in the first 6 games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we did see a few things, but yesterday it was a lot clearer, in my opinion. What do you feel about the way Laurent Courtois sees the game?
I liken it to like a cobra, where they kind of lull you into a false sense of security, and then it takes really just 2 or 3 passes to completely break you wide open, especially in an open game. I'd love to see how they do against a low block. They haven't played against a low block all season. That I think is their next big challenge, because they've shown in an open game they can go punch for punch with most teams in the league. So I think that now you have to kind of first thing you have to do is fine tune that, because there were still moments in the game where either you go too quick or you wait a bit too long. Remember that counterattack that ended with a Rowan cross that just went nowhere, right? It seemed as if they were almost overwhelmed by how much space there was and how many and their number advantage, that they didn't know what to do. And they're kind of like, holy shit, we've never been in this position before. What do we do next? And so that comes with time and that comes with practice. But the fact that they get themselves in these positions so easily against a team like Cincinnati was very impressive, right? And they're getting closer and closer to this, this final form, right? Whatever you want to call it. But you're already seeing, you know, hints of what this team can be if they could put together a full performance. Because this was arguably the most complete performance they had all season, right? You had Chicago where they were excellent for like 70 minutes.
Yeah.
You have this game where they were excellent for 80, 85, and then they parked the bus and they kind of handled that just as competently, but they just didn't, dominate. So this was, from a tactical perspective, was very impressive. And I feel like it's the culmination of like almost all the learning they've been doing on the road, because you see that every single spot on the field was covered and was spoken for. And I want to go back to the back three and the questions about Gabriele Corbo and the questions about, where does he fit
Yeah.
into all this?
Let's
And
put the questions
because we got a couple questions from them from Dr. Foot, why is Corbo in Copa's doghouse? I don't think he's in the doghouse. I think
let's put all the questions together. Any sense of that's Tate? Any sense of Corbo's role moving forward? Surprised not to see him starting last night. Is he a bit banged up? Might we see him in the middle at times to give Waterman a breather in the middle of the back three? And again, RB, what's happening with Corbo injured? So yeah,
yeah.
you can go ahead
So
and
Gabriele
continue your
Corbo
thoughts.
is not injured. He's fit. There's been no mention of him having a knock or anything like that. But when you look at Cincinnati, that back line, that back three was perfectly constructed to handle what Cincinnati had to offer. Because yes, they're very fluid, but at the end of the day, you have Lucho Acosta, who likes to play in the middle and then veer out toward the left a little bit. You have Bupenza, sorry, who likes to play mostly in that half space on the right. Then you have Kubo, who kind of floats all over the place.
Yeah.
George Campbell has a lot of things he needs to, not a lot of things, but he has things he needs to work on in his game.
Of
Most of it
course.
is off ball defending. In terms of on ball defending, be it in the air or on the ground, he is exceptional.
Yeah.
In a 1v1 situation, you saw a number of times he had Luciano Costa, the reigning MVP, in front of him, and he didn't flinch. And Acosta had to leave his preferred left spot because of the fact that there was just nothing happening there. On the other side, you have Joaquin Sosa, who is probably of the center backs the quickest. We saw him have his little forays at fullback. And Bupenza is one of the fastest players in MLS. And I think that, yeah, Nicholas saying I really like Sosa. I'm starting to understand why Laurent Courtois was so high on him in preseason. We got all these reports of why he liked him so much. He's finally fully fit and he's getting some games under his belt. He's going to be so fun to watch in this run. But I just find he's a bit more well suited to handle someone like Bupenza, who has this pace, who has this power, and who has this bit of directness to it that the other two forwards don't have. I think could cause Gabriel Corbo a lot of headache. So I think that just a game like this is, Laurent Courtois has two outside center backs that would be perfectly suited to this. And the fact that you have a top level ball playing center back who is left footed again, I think also has to do with it, right? Because as good as Gabriel Corbo was on that left side, he's not left footed. And you saw how many times in innovating the press and building up from the back, having that left foot is so important. So I think that all these things taken into consideration, I wasn't too surprised not to see Gabriel Corbo. And in hindsight, after this game, I'm even less surprised. So he will find his own spot and he will find his own way to contribute because he is that good. I really like Tate's idea of, he is
Oh,
probably
you wanted that since
the
last year.
but at the same time, because he is probably the closest thing the club has to Rudy Camacho in terms of profile, in terms of play style. And even at that,
So you would bench the Waterman to put
no,
Corbo.
no, because I think Waterman brings more and Waterman has more. He's embracing the role of the leader this year. And I think that, having him as that main middle center back, he is right now, he's immovable.
I feel that Waterman in the middle has a very high ceiling that we haven't seen yet. I think he can be very, very good. Don't forget that Waterman is someone that learns very quickly and has shown that he has a potential of learning quickly. So yes, he had some tough games, but I'm not worried. I feel that he's going to grow into that general of the back line. That Rudy Camacho role. I think he's going to grow and really grab that by the horns. And Gabriel Corbo is a very consistent player. I don't think that he can be that general in the middle of the back three. Even if he can do a decent job, I don't think he has a ceiling as high as Waterman's. That's my honest opinion. So I don't know. It really sucks for Gabriel Corbo because he's been so good for this team, but right now I feel that the roles that you need, the profiles that you need in that back line, unfortunately, are not his best assets. What you're asking, what you want to bring to the table, Gabriel Corbo cannot bring it as a right center back or as a left center back, because what I really loved about that team is the fact that the center backs were able to really go forward, to move with the ball forward, to make runs up front. And we saw that quite a few times with Sosa, I think getting 2 or 3 shots on goal, if I'm not mistaken.
Had a very good shot at the start of the second half.
Exactly. And you saw him quite a few times and play a bit like a left back and moving forward like a lot.
Yeah.
And George Campbell staying, a bit less than Joaquin Sosa, but staying. really, really interesting going forward. And we saw him last year already. George Campbell, what he was able to do when he brought the ball forward, and with some runs, and he scored a goal at one point with one of his runs. So I don't know. I feel that those two are really interesting. Now, of course, they're young, so they're gonna make their share of mistakes. Does Gabriel Corbo has what it takes to take one of those two spots? Either Joaquin Sosa or George Campbell? I'm not sure yet. What do you think?
To take a spot, I don't know, but he's definitely good enough to compete for the spot. I think
Yeah,
that, right? I think this is a good problem for Laurent Courtois to have, that you have, right, three defenders for two spots. Yes, Samuel Savi again. Defend with your strong foot. The way they played out of the back under pressure was so nice to watch. And the fact that 6 months ago we were watching a completely different team at this stadium is just, it still feels weird to me. But yeah, beautiful football is back in Montreal, and I'm thrilled.
yeah, no, I am too. So when you see that Courtois ball,
Hmm.
where you see that the defenders taking a lot more responsibilities, not only defensive responsibilities, but offensive responsibilities, and the midfield, the double pivot, really playing a playing with a big defensive role, a lot bigger than an offensive role.
Hmm.
Do you feel that's Courtois' ball in a way, where the midfield is going to play very defensive, and the central defenders are going to come and create that overcrowd the middle, or really create those inequalities in man-to-man marking up front?
Look, remember, one of the biggest selling points of Laurent Courtois was how similar he embodied Wilfried Nancy's style.
Yeah,
And under Wilfried Nancy, you had Joel Waterman, you had Kamal Miller as those outside center backs, and even Rudy Camacho, who led the league for outfielders in progressive passes and line breaking passes. And I'm not at all surprised to see him opt for more athletic
yeah,
and ball playing center backs like Joaquin Sosa and like George Campbell, right? I think that when you look at what he asks of his center backs, there's a lot more running, there's a lot more involvement, and now again, they didn't spend too much time playing against a low block or playing against, uh, very advanced in the final third. But I'd love to see them get even more involved in the offensive involvement. Because again, on Underwood Finn, I'll see Kamal Miller was basically a left back that just played some defense sometimes, right? So I could very
I
much see that
agree.
from Joaquin Sosa because he has a very similar profile.
No, I agree, 100%, 100%. I really like what I saw from Laurent Courtois, and what he's trying to do with the team. So hopefully you guys really liked also what you saw from Courtois, and the way he plays the game. Very, we saw a lot of quick passing, one touch passing, direct play, but also some buildups that were very interesting, combinations that were very, very interesting. Uh, you know, Trying to go above and beyond what your position is. I think that's the way I can
Hmm.
say it in a few words. Because usually what you expect from the center back is not what you see from the center backs of Courtois. What you expect of a midfielder is not what you see of the midfielders of Courtois, and so on, which becomes very hard for the opposition, because you're not really sure who's going to do what. And I feel that it's very hard to read the game of that Laurent Courtois is trying to bring up front with the CF Montreal, but it's very pleasing to the eye. Let's be honest with
Absolutely.
that. So, and he's a bit of a mix. I like. I see what the similarities with Wilfried Nancy, but I feel that he's a bit more direct than Wilfried Nancy. That's a lot more, you know, that's closer to maybe a tiki taka, or a bit slow possession and everything. With Laurent Courtois, is a lot faster. It's very direct. As of right now, maybe he's going to develop to a more possession-based kind of team, but
It
he
depends on the
seems,
opposition, right?
yeah,
Cincinnati
but
won't
his
play a low
play,
block.
yeah, but still, I still believe that it's very direct, and we saw what he tried to do it already in Seattle. Laurent Courtois trying to be a bit more direct. It didn't work, unfortunately, but we saw, a bit of that already in Seattle, and we see it, be even better in Montreal in Stade Saputo. So hopefully we'll see that grow more in the next few weeks and few games. So that's it for Courtois Ball. I hope you guys like that segment, but let's move on with our next segment, the Canadian women's national team. What a game they played against the US. Unfortunately, losing in penalties after such a good game. Uh, when you look at this and when you see that Canada was able to get to be on par with one of the most dangerous teams in women's football. Are you, of course, as a fan, we're unhappy and we're disappointed, but it's still very encouraging to
Yes,
see
no,
them go to toe with the US.
100% that they went punch for punch. Absolutely. I hate penalties. Oh, I hate
Yeah,
penalties so
same.
much.
And
Um,
no extra time
and yeah,
penalties
straight to
directly.
penalties.
Yeah,
But no, honestly, it was a bit surprising. The way they lined up. I think having four. It was weird because it was almost like Jesse Fleming was the only proper midfielder in the starting
let's
11.
look. Let's look at the lineup. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, so I mean, you have a back line, a back three of Kadish Buchanan, Jade Rose, and Vanessa Gilles. Then you have Janine Becky and Ashley Lawrence as your wing backs. Then you have it was weird. Then you have Jesse Fleming and Jordan Heidema. It felt like who was playing in the
Yeah,
midfield,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then your front line of uh Simia Wujo was there. So, wait, is this the same
yeah. There
lineup?
were three. There were three in a midfield.
Yeah, and then Simi
Yeah,
Wujo was there as well. It felt like, and then you have up top you had Deanne Rose um and Adriana Leon. And I don't know, Jordan Heidema as a 10 was weird for me. I think that
it's the
she
second
dropped
game
even
in a row. Second game in a row that we
yeah,
see her play that midfield role. In the semifinal, it was the same thing too.
and first things first, I think Simi Wujo is so good.
Yeah,
And I know you
she's
have that smile on your face because you've been high on her for a while.
yeah,
And she's going to be so important going forward, especially against a team as physical and as pacey as the United States. It's going to be such an important kind of player for the national team. And you have this, this double pivot of a midfield in Sima Wujo and Jesse Fleming that is just it's better than it has any right to be. They are playing on a different level, and they're going again. They were going step for step with an American midfield that is, in all honesty, terrifying.
yeah,
Uh,
really terrifying.
but I think that at the end of the day, Canada's Achilles heel is still its attack, which is weird considering they have so many excellent inform attackers that they still don't know what kind of team they are going forward after this long is a real cause for concern. Because this is not new. This is not like, yes, this is a changing of the guard in some respect, but at the end of the day, you've had a lot of these players in the national team picture for a while now, right? This isn't your first tournament. This isn't your second tournament. This isn't even you've had a whole World Cup and you've had over a year with a lot of these players, and you still aren't 100% clear on how you attack. And I feel like a lot of some of the shortcomings of the United States kind of let them off the hook because of the fact that they weren't able to exploit those mistakes adequately because they just don't know what kind of team they are. So I think that we've been saying this forever that, Beth Priestman's biggest challenge is what is she going to do with the attack? Because you have some world class defenders, you have some world class midfielders, and you have some world class attackers, but only one of those three parts of the game are struggling. So at some point, she's going to have to change things up. And the problem now is you had your Gold Cup, you had your She Believes Cup. The time for experimentation is over because your next window, your next tournament is the Olympics, and you don't experiment the Olympics. This is when you try and defend your crown. So that's my biggest concern. And that game against the US kind of showed it again that there is still that resiliency and there's still that extra oomph that a rivalry game affords you. But not every game is going to be against the US where you can kind of dig deep and say, okay, this is a rivalry match, so I'm going to get that extra 10% out. Now it comes down to cold hard football, and can one team outplay another? And if they don't have that sheer tactical quality to kind of bring out what's best in all those players, then we might get a repeat of the World Cup. I mean, I think they'll do better in the World
Oh,
Cup.
you're that concerned then?
Yes, I'm that concerned because I thought maybe the She Believes Cup will finally get, at least a new look offense. And not just in formation, but
In 2 games, you're scoring 3 goals.
yes, but at the same time, it could have been so much more. It should have been so much more. Right? Because it's not just in finishing, right? From a finishing perspective, that's fine, but it's a chance creation.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? You can't have this many talented wingbacks and forwards and midfielders and not create more, especially against teams that aren't playing in low blocks. Right? The US is completely run and gun. The Brazilians leave just as many gaps, and you didn't create nearly enough to show me that you've learned from an attacking perspective. You've learned from any mistakes you've made in the World Cup. So that's my biggest concern, is that they still have the people to manage a game when you're in the lead. The thing is, building that lead is what concerns me.
Yeah, no, I kind of I agree and disagree in this at the same time. I think we saw a bit of a growth from the women's national team. Just being able to score first in such a tie is a new thing for Canada. Usually they're
That's true.
always the one trailing behind and equalizing, but this time around, I think Canada was very interesting in that game because they weren't, like, most of the time they weren't playing very defensively, playing a low block or anything. They did really try to build, try to score, try to get chances. Yes, of course, it's not great because, as you said, the chance creation wasn't that fruitful. But we did score the first goal with Adriana Leon at the 40th minute, and that was, I think, very, very encouraging. And again, Adriana Leon proving how good she can be for that team. Of course, Adriana Leon really is the one that scored, but the whole work was done by
The whole
a
mess. Yeah.
great run from Ashley Lawrence in behind the defense, and trying to go one on one with Nair, and Nair being at the top of the box and
For some reason.
and tackling Ashley Lawrence, where I think she yeah, I think it was a very bad call from Nair, the American goalkeeper, and then the ball fell to Deanne Rose, who gave it to Adriana Leon in front of the goal all alone, was just one defender trying to tackle the ball and put it in the back of the net. But that's what's really interesting about Canada, is that the fact that they found a goal before they were the first to score, and that's what's really interesting. I also really like the sort of partnership of Adriana Leon and Deanne Rose. I really like that. That was very positive. I feel that we saw it also in the semifinals, that Deanne Rose is able to take that role of that Michelle Prince used to have, and they're able to play together very well, which is very interesting. But I agree with you, Jordan Heidemann in midfield is a bit of a. I'm scratching my head still by trying to understand why we're seeing that, because we do have some talented midfielders that are not being used for
Even
Jordan
forwards, I
Heidemann in the
think
middle.
that, like Chloe Lacasse would be better suited to drop into the midfield than Jordan Heidemann would be.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
So
I'm not really sure. Even Janine Becky and you play Lacasse as left wing back. I don't know, but there are quite a few options. You have Julia Grosso that's here that's able to do a very very good job. So I'm not really sure what Beth Friesen is trying to do with Jordan Heidema. Now moving on, Janine Becky.
mhm.
Let's talk about her return with the national team. She's been playing as a left wing back. A great show in the semifinals, bit less not bad. She wasn't bad in the final, but I don't think she had a stellar performance like she did in the semifinals. But how interesting is it to have Janine Becky back into that lineup?
It's so nice to have her back in the national team. She's so good, and I think, we were all reminded of just how good she is. Yeah, I mean, she wasn't as good in the final as she was in the semis, but I still think that she did a really good job
Yeah,
given her assignment, and given the fact that, Sophia Smith is one of the best players in the world, and having her on your side is never fun. Um, but at the same time, going forward, I still think that you you could tell that she's lost a step. It's understandable, right? You had a year off, you've had ACL surgery. There was just some times where, she found a lot of space in behind, and she just ran out of gas, or she just, she would get caught up too. And I think that is the real shame, because with the ball she's still just as good and she's still the same Janine Becky, but you could tell that her speed has kind of taken a bit of a hit, which is that's just ACL surgery. That's kind of what comes with the territory. But I think that, against teams where maybe there's less running for the wingback and there's more involved in the technical play, I still think that she's gonna be such a crucial part of that team. Kind of talked about, we talked a while about, Chloe Lacasse being left wing back, and not having her play that position against teams where she would have to defend too much, and not we wouldn't get as much of the attacking Chloe Lacasse. But Gabrielle Carl is back. She's fit again. I think that Janine Becky kind of has to find what is her role now, because you know
yeah.
games like the US kind of showed maybe where.
But I think she's very she's a no brainer in the 18.
Oh yeah, no,
That
that
are
that's
going to
that's
the
that's not even a
Olympics.
discussion. That's not even a
Yeah.
discussion.
Uh,
100%.
and let's talk about what she's able to do, Janine Becky. And we talked a bit about Adriana Leon. Adriana Leon moving third in the all-time list in goals in the history of the women's national team. Of course, Christine Sinclair is unreachable, and then you have Hooper that's in second place, and then Leon in third with 39 goals. Bertini, that I don't know, I don't know who's Bertini, 38 goals. Becky with
Yeah.
36 in the fifth position, and Lang, of course, in the 30 with 34 goals. So you have two players of that squad that are in the top six all time in goals, and that's how important those two players can be for the Canadian women's national team. So hopefully we'll see that, you know, standings, get better for those two,
Yeah.
in the Olympics. So that's, I think, very interesting. I did listen to the comments of Beth Priestman after the game, and she said, and I'm still not sure about what she said. She said we're missing five crucial players. Who are the five crucial players for you? And I'm looking at the players that have missed uh, the She Believes Cup. Okay, we have Lisiane Prou. I don't think she's a crucial player because she never plays. So let's. I think we both agree that she's not that crucial player. Jade Riviere can be one of those crucial players. Sydney Collins also, in Beth Priestman's style of play. Quinn, of course, she's there. They are in those, five crucial players. Olivia Smith, is she already a crucial player for that team?
Doesn't have enough minutes to be a crucial player.
And then Michelle Prince, that can also be. That's the only five that I thought of. But saying that they're crucial, I feel that's a bit too much. Maybe I can understand if we talk about Quinn as being a crucial player. The rest for me are rotation players. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I understand maybe the coach's tendency to view all your players in your national team call up as crucial, because or else they wouldn't be
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I think that that wouldn't be the word I would use, crucial. But I think that definitely important in some capacity, because again, they all bring different things, and sometimes you need those options, right? Even if they're not going to be used, just to kind of give you the ability to plan out what you're doing next. So I mean, I get it that you're missing these players, but ultimately I don't think that would have affected the result all that much.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think so
So
either. Let's talk about the final point for that game: penalties. Uh,
I hate
we did we did talk a lot about the Canadian national team, even if in the last Olympics they won. I don't remember how many games in penalties, but I think two or three.
feels like all of them.
And it was a big force for that
Hmm.
national team in the Olympics in Tokyo. Right now, it feels like the Achilles heel for them because they are at the World Cup, in the Gold Cup, and again here losing on penalties. And even if when you look at the scenario, Jesse Fleming scoring and Trinity Rodman missing. By the way, I didn't know Trinity Rodman was the daughter of Dennis Rodman. By the
Dennis
way,
Rodman, yeah.
yeah, I didn't know that. So I saw it today online. I was like, oh, really? And she looks a bit like him. So
Yeah, there is a resemblance. Once I
yeah,
found out,
there's
it
a
became a
big,
lot more
big
apparent.
resemblance. Yeah, exactly. And then you're having the break at first, then Adriana Leon scoring twice a second time in penalties. I think is very, very tough to do. But then you know seeing Jade Rose miss, Chloe Lacasse miss, and the game was completely lost at that point. Even if Emily Sonnett missed, and then we were back on with Julia Grosso. Then we had Lawrence and Dahlkemper that scored. It was 4-4, and then we saw Evelyn Via miss.
Yeah,
So
bad penalties,
how
man.
I know you hate penalties, but how can you improve on that? What's the kind of work that needs to be done for the team to be better at this exercise?
Training penalties at this level is almost impossible, because you can't replicate the stakes or the pressure, and it's a very fundamental act, right? The penalty is very straightforward. If anything, the only people that train penalties are keepers, right? Because in training, yes, you can kind of get your mechanics and maybe work on your run up a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's picking a corner, right? And in training, you can't replicate that kind of pressure that you feel in a game, especially in the opposing team's stadium with a full crowd cheering against you. So it really is just breathing and keeping your cool, and that comes with experience. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
You have to live through penalty shootouts to be better at penalties. That's the
It's
only
a
really
it's
way
a
you get
younger
better.
team. It's a younger team. Let's agree.
Exactly,
Let's agree
right?
on that. It's a younger
So
team that it's not very experienced team. Even if you do have some veterans with Adriana Leon, Jenny
yeah,
Becky, Jesse Fleming is now a veteran. Quinn, yes, but when you look
there's a
at the
lot of
other
youngsters. Yeah.
players, when you look at the other players that have gone for penalties, you have Jade Rose. That's yes, she's been she has quite a few caps, but still very new. Chloe
Mhm,
Lacasse hasn't been around even if she's 29. She has been around the national team for long, so she's a bit kind of new in this in his regard as an experienced player on the pitch. Same, Julia Grosso is very young. Yes,
mhm.
Ashley Lawrence has been here quite a few times, and even Evelyn Vian hasn't been with the team for so long. So yeah, I agree with you that it seems that it's a bit of the experience. When you look at the other side, um, you did have some young players really go into that.
Like Trinity
Uh,
Rodman, right? She's like what, 20?
she's
She's
the
like
one that
20 or
started.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
and that was a terrible penalty.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah.
look, at the end of the day,
But you
penalties are
still
penalties.
have,
I hate penalties,
yeah.
but it really is just experience at this point, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And you still have experienced players, as I said. Alicia Nair really shooting a penalty, the goalkeeper. You have Val Kemper, that's also 30, that's been in and around the team for quite a while. Crystal Dunn, same thing. Emily Sonnet, same thing. Lindsay Horan, that went for a
Mm.
penalty also. So you had a lot more experience in that squad than in Canada, in my opinion. So yeah, I think I agree with you with the experience part, but I really think that we need to get better at that if you want to challenge for
Yeah, some
for
of the
for the
penalties were
gold
just
medal.
bad.
Yeah,
Like, Evelyn
not
Viens was not great. I mean, all 3 misses were,
yeah, pretty bad,
it's pretty bad.
pretty bad,
That's a good word,
pretty
yeah,
bad.
pretty bad.
Yeah. No, I think that Jade Rose wasn't bad. I think she hit she hit the woodwork if I'm not mistaken. Jade
Yeah,
Rose,
but I
right?
mean, yeah,
It
that's
wasn't a
more
bad
unlucky.
penalty. It's unlucky more than
Yeah,
anything. So, moving on, and last question for you before we move on with starting. I was sneezing with social media. Before we move on with social media, um, do you feel that that team has what it takes and has improved enough since the last World Cup? I think you already answered a bit of that question, but to challenge for a gold medal in the Olympics.
have they improved? Yes. Have they improved enough? I don't think so.
Wow.
I think
Yeah,
they've done enough to get very far in the tournament, but to get over that last bit, knowing the quality of the teams ahead of them that they'll have to beat, I don't think they have enough to make teams pay at that level.
yeah. Interesting. I agree with you. I don't think they grew enough to get that second gold medal in a row, but I think they're going to be tough opponents. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see
They'll
what.
they'll, they'll by no means be pushovers, but
Yeah,
I don't think they have enough to get over the line.
let's we'll see. We'll have time, of course, to analyze everything here on the ball is round. I think we still have time to go through social media. We're gonna go fast with social media.
Lightning round.
So let's launch a segment. First, if you don't mind, Elias, we missed a couple of questions that were sent to us, so
Yeah, of course.
let's answer them very, very quick. There's one of them that we already answered with Simple Guy asking after yesterday's performance with Lassiter continued to be used in midfield. I think we already answered.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to have him up front, but I think there's versatility of Iron Lassiter is going to be very interesting going forward, in my opinion. But I don't know if you have anything else
Yeah,
to add,
especially
Elias.
while there's a bunch of forwards injured, I think that helps. Just,
Yeah,
can Raheem Edwards stay out of trouble long enough?
exactly. Love that closing statement. The second, it's more of a thought from Savin Savvy saying, not a question, but a thought. Big shout out to CF Montreal for the recent introspection, their willingness to bring back the impact in their promos and allowing Section 132 to create their beautiful tifo is awesome. Not an apology for the Gilmore years, but as close it can get, in my opinion. Honestly, yeah, I agree. I feel that the fans are connected again to the club in a
Yeah,
way, and good tifo. I like the tifo of Le Collectif, which was very interesting. But also, the tifo of the 1642
yeah,
was
the
really
Fox.
interesting.
Yeah,
So the yeah, so I think yeah, I feel that I like it better knowing that there aren't any you know words that can you know in a way, the fact that in the Gilmore years, saying impact meant, oh, punishment, you're going to be banned, you're going to be
yeah,
pulled out. And I feel, for a fan not being able to express whatever he wants to, it's a bit of really stupid. It's very stupid, to
yeah.
be honest, because you go to a game, to a soccer game, to express yourself, to be free, to be able to support your team, and not to feel like you're in a prison and not express yourself fully. So I like that thought from Sam Seppi. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
They're making up for it, which is what the only thing they can do.
So I'll let you go with social media with the first tweet.
Yes, this is from Dr. Foot. CF Montreal had a little depth. Now we don't have any at all. He's saying Lassie, eternal subscribers to the infirmary. I love the wording of that. Opoku and Kokoro lost in the long term. Toy, who is there to just, fill a shirt. Martinez will not be able to play 90 minutes every week. It was all good news, or mostly good news in this podcast for the CF Montreal side.
Yeah.
How much of the concern is this for you?
It's concerning, yes. Um, I wish Laurent Courtois had a lot more options, and I feel that he deserves to have a lot more options. But in a way, that's why you have squad depth. And one thing that Olivier Renard said again in his interview on 98.5, got it right this time, uh, uh, is that he's very happy with the depth that he has in that team.
Mhm.
So right now, and we said it a bit, before in this pod, having Lassie that can play in that forward position, Lassiter that can play in that forward position. You have Vilsa, I think is close to a return. Opoku is going to return in 3-4 weeks. You know, you have Sanusi also that didn't play. Mason Toy that got maybe 5-6 minutes. That could be that player that can bring something different up front. You do have a few players that you can use still. Hopefully, we'll see a bit of movement. Maybe player like Mason Toy that I feel has made what he could in Montreal and maybe could benefit with another challenge elsewhere. If we're able to move him and get somebody else at his place, maybe that's something to look at. I don't think we're going to be able to, but we'll see. But you do have enough bodies, even if you have injuries. So I am concerned about the lack of quality of all those players,
Mhm.
but you have bodies and you can work around what they can bring on the table and change a bit of your style of play to adapt to the players that you have that are available and not injured.
Yeah.
So concerned, but not that much.
Okay. No, that's fair. Um,
Yeah, moving on with the second tweet.
yeah. This is from Benedict Rhodes. This is in replying to a tweet where Bev Priest said that Christine Sinclair
Yeah,
decided that when she retired, Jade Rose should take the number 12 shirt. More from Bev Priest about Jade Rose. Jade is such a level-headed, intelligent person, and then an incredible player. I think she has unbelievable football brain, and then unbelievable athleticism. The sky is limit for Rose. How do we talk about Vanessa Gilles. We talk about Kadich Buchanan, two world-class players playing at, some of the biggest clubs in the world. Jade Rose, especially in the 2 games against the Americans, has put in shifts. How underrated is she, and how important will she be as that third center back?
I think that the ceiling is very, 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 very high for Jade Rose. I agree with Beth Reese saying that the sky is the limit. I completely agree with that. I think she's very, very strong. I agree. The thing is, she needs to play professional minutes.
Mhm.
She needs to sign with a bigger club to understand what it is to have consistency week in, week out with a professional club. And I think that's what's right now holding her from being that force in the starting 11 or in the back three, even if she's very, very good. I think she can be that much better. She
Mhm.
can be in the starting 11 worldwide. That's how high her ceiling is. She can be when you look. She can be in Champions League finals. She has that ability, but when is she gonna go fully professional? That's, I think, the question that we need to ask, because as of right now, if I'm not mistaken, she's still playing at the NCAA level, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she's at Harvard, I think.
I'm looking it up right now,
I
but
forget which school she goes to, but yeah, she's still in the NCAA
yeah,
as of now,
yeah, she
which is
is.
crazy considering
Yeah,
that she's what, she's 20 years old and teams are gonna snap her up. There's gonna be a bidding war when she leaves for sure.
yeah, yeah. So hopefully we'll see her grow a bit more by joining a top team, because she deserves it.
Yeah,
And she's very young now, 21,
yeah,
only 21.
21. Yeah,
Yeah,
so sky's
yeah.
the limit. Absolutely. This is
Next
also
week,
from Benedict. Thank you for having good tweets, Benedict. Um, if you look at the Athletic Ottawa side, Ingham, Sissoko, Didic, Singh, De Bruyne, Bassett, Zabater, Aparicio, Dos Santos, Salter, and Tabla. Does Athletic Ottawa have the best starting lineup in CPL on paper? 80% said yes. How do you think this is enough of a group to kind of end the Forge FC dominance we've been seeing in the Canadian Premier League?
we talked about it quite a few times here about experience. It's not only a matter of quality; it's a matter of
Mhm.
experience. Does Atletico Ottawa with that starting 11 have enough experience? I think they do, with Nathan Ingham, with Didic, Singh, De Bruyne, Bassett, Aparicio, Tabla. All those players have a ton of experience, even if they're not, not in their the end of their career, but they do have a ton of experience, and that could be a game changer. That could be the thing that would give that first title to
Mhm.
Atletico Ottawa. So on paper, they're very, very strong, but I think that also Forge on paper is very, very strong.
As
So,
always, yeah.
so and Forge has a style of play that's very efficient. Not that easy on the eye. Sometimes it's a bit boring, but they're so efficient
Mhm.
that sometimes it can be very, very hard to beat. So
Yeah, well-oiled
let's wait and
machines,
see.
right?
But yeah, but I feel that it's going to be a great, great season in CPL this year.
Yeah. Well, the first match week is done, and both Ottawa and Forge won their games, but Vancouver is in first place on goal
Yeah,
differential because it's week one. They beat Valor 4-1, but it's week one. Nobody knows anything yet. It'll be,
of
like you
course.
said, a very interesting CPL season this year.
And it's going to be
Definitely
very tough
follow
for,
along, everyone listening,
yeah,
because we
it's going
love
to be
supporting
very
our league.
tough,
Yeah.
I think, for Valor this year. So let's wait and see. Moving on.
Yes,
Next,
this is from Nilton George. Are these two names really superior to Mauro Biello? This is in response to Christian Jack reporting that Bobby Smirnotis and Tommy Wheeldon Jr., two very familiar competitors, are among the candidates for the men's national team manager job. How do you think this is an improvement on Mauro Biello? Do you think this is the same? Do you think this will help Canada ahead of Copa America? Should this happen, or the World Cup in 2026? What are your takes on these two guys?
The difference between I don't think that when you look at their CVs, they're a lot better than Morabiello because Morabiello trained and coached an MLS team, which
Mhm.
is a better league than the CanPL. But when you look at the tactical uh, minds of those two, for me, they are superior to Morabiello. Even if on paper they didn't coach better teams than Morabiello, tactically they are a lot better. So yes, now it would be very underwhelming going into a World Cup cycle right now and Copa America with not a big name as a coach. I think we need a big name right now to carry us over. But we always said that Smirniotis, we wanted him here in Montreal, and it didn't happen, and we were very happy with Courtois. But I feel he deserves another chance at another club than Forge FC to prove himself. But yeah, I understand the tweet of Nilton. Biello is doing a job right now. He did help us qualify with to the Copa America, but I think that it's not thanks to Biello that we qualified to Copa America. It's more because we have a good squad.
Mhm.
Is he able to answer tactically to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru? I really don't think so. But why don't we try something else, which could be Tommy Wilden Jr., could be Bobby Smirniotis. At least we tried Biello, we didn't like it. Let's move on to something else. Last but not least,
Yes, this is from Pascal. There's a new crowd host before the games, Frederick Barbuski. I hope I pronounced that right, Barbushi. I didn't know, however, if he's going to do social media like Catherine Paquette did. Catherine Paquette, of course, who was the old pre-match host that everyone knows and loves. Frederick, welcome to CF Montreal. We hope to see you around for a while. I think he did a really good job the first game. It was a bit weird not seeing Catherine, but looking forward to more games that he's commenting on because he did a good job.
yeah, good luck. Good luck for the season, of course, and welcome to the team in a way.
Yes.
Or maybe you weren't ready with the team and we didn't know, but good job and good luck for the season. I want to show one thing that I really liked. It's not within social media. That's the team picture after the win. And I don't know if you realize that all the players that were in the next to the press box
Hmm.
were all wearing suits.
Yeah,
You
they look
see, and the
good.
same
They look
the same suits. So you see Yankov, you see Opoku, you see Nathan Saliba and Julien Vilsan,
You
all
see
wearing
Elias in the
suits.
background. Yeah.
Same suit also for Eliades. And you know what? I saw it quite a few times in all different sports across, the sports scene where you have some coaches that ask from the players to wear suits when they're not wearing their jerseys. Do you think that having that extra discipline is a must in today's game and in today's era?
I mean, they had them last year. They had like the black suit and the black shirt. I prefer this look a lot more, a lot more. I just think it's a nicer color.
Yeah.
A bit less intimidating, but just more stylish. Um, I think it's nice. They all show up like this is even at home they show up on the bus together. They don't all come individually. So
Yeah.
if you're going to show up to games together, may as well look the same. When they travel they wear team colors, but when they play at home in front of your home fans you show up in a suit. I don't mind it. I think they
Yeah.
look good, so hey.
Yeah, I love it. I think in a young team, bring that discipline is kind of
Yeah, that
I
too.
think it's a good thing. I think it helps everybody focus on what they mean to the city and to the fans. You're not representing yourself. You're representing a club, an entity, and having that uniformity with the suits. I really liked it. I think at one point, I think NBA it became the same thing also, because at one point everybody was coming in baggies and in with the, all their attire, and they decided that no, from now on everybody's going to wear suits, and it made a big difference, I think, in people's minds in a way. So stupid sometimes, but sometimes it can be something that can be reassuring for the players, but also for the fans and for everybody. Last but not least, something that we do every week. Unfortunately, we don't have the new board from Pops, but we do have next game that's against Orlando. Elias,
Yes.
what's your prediction?
Orlando's been really good the last couple games. They had a really rough start, Champions League hangover and all that stuff, but they've course corrected. Momentum is momentum, I'm gonna go with another 2-1 for Montreal, I think.
Oh wow, okay. 2-1 for Montreal. If I'm looking at the MLS and last game, I think they won 3-2, if I'm not
They
mistaken.
beat DC, if I'm not mistaken, 3-2, I
Yeah,
think.
I think it was 3-2 for against DC United. Um, yeah, I like our chances at home. I feel we're very good at home, and I'm gonna follow you with a 2-1 win. Yeah, two
Great
one
minds
win for
think
me
alike.
too. Exactly. And that's
Before,
gonna
one last thing.
yeah.
Patrick said, "Ask good enough for bronze about the women in the Olympics."
Oh,
Bronze is not outside the realm of possibility. Group A does all right because Group A, if you finish first or second, you're guaranteed not to play a first place team. Even if you finish second, you play the second place team in Group C, if I'm not mistaken. So the chance of getting to the semifinals is decent. I just don't think they have enough to win the whole thing. But bronze is definitely not outrageous.
let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. You heard it from Elias Grigoriadis. So bronze is attainable for the women's national team. That's it for tonight, for tonight's show of The Ball is Round. I hope you guys liked it. And of course, guys, as we always said, this content is always going to be free. We're not going to change that. But if you want to help us, you want to help us grow, feel free to join our Patreon page and of course help us out. This is it for this week. See you next week for episode 176 of The Ball is Round.